That's what this is, huh? Okay.
Okay, everybody on Facebook Live, we're rocking. Okay, I am here with Barbara Burnett. She is the CEO of Robinson Burnett Tax Consultants.
Yes.
Cool. And so this is a unique podcast. And so those that are watching live or listening, today we're going to really dive into how to keep our money instead of give it all to the government.
Yes.
Because a huge problem in this industry is sales reps were never taught in school. Like in high school, they never taught me. I'm going to tell you a fun story about me, and I haven't shared this with you, but
Okay.
you'll like it. And she is a speaker at DoorCon, and we're going to dive into her story, a little bit more on kind of how do we maximize our tax savings as being a small business owner, setting up our S corps, LLCs, all that kind of stuff. So
absolutely.
super excited to have you on the show. This will be fun. So tell us a little bit about how you got into accounting. Like, you know, it's not every woman's dream to be like, I'm going to grow up and be an accountant. I don't know. You tell me. Kind of.
I know. Actually, I did not choose this profession. It chose me, so to speak.
Okay.
My dad was a partner with Deloitte, which is one of the big firms, international firms. And so, the 5 kids were his janitors, or, we eventually became secretaries. And by the time I was 16, I had 16 accounts. So I grew up in the tax world, and because my dad was the boss, his kids got to do whatever they wanted. And so he would, select things. And I remember when I was like 6, this is way back when we just had books. And so notice that we always have changes in the tax code. Well, every time a change came up, you'd get a box full of papers, and you'd have to take out the old and put in the new. So my first job at age 6 was doing that. Like I had to take out 583 and put in the new 583. So it taught me categorization.
And you're just like this little kid, like that's fun.
But anyway, so really what my goal was is I wanted to teach accounting. So I went ahead at the University of Idaho up in Moscow, Idaho, and got my teaching degree in business education. And I taught accounting, economics, and business law at Boise.
That's awesome.
At Capitol High. Then moved down to Utah, and still had not started my family yet with my husband. And so I went back to school and got my full-blown accounting degree. And then we started having babies, and I went right into starting a firm. So hired CPAs, bookkeepers, payroll, attorneys all along my way. By the time I sold my first practice in Colorado, it was a $600,000 base.
Wow.
And I had all these people working for me, but I just wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So what's happened now is when I came into Utah, I actually had never really heard of door-to-door sales, because in Colorado we do other things like ski or smoke pot or whatever. So I had not been in this industry, but I was in a family gathering or something, and one of my friend's sons said that he's going to work door to door for a company, and I won't name the company because there's so many great ones. But I said, being the business person I am and always wanting to know more, because I always do, I said, well, do they give you a W-2 or a 1099? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, this guy does not know what I'm talking about. And he really didn't, but he said, I think 1099 sounds familiar. And I said, and how much do you think you're going to make? And he says, I'm projecting like 60 to 100,000. And I said, you're not going anywhere until we set you up an S corporation, because I know how to maximize the tax savings by electing to do a reasonable salary, and that's all you pay payroll taxes on, and the rest just distributions that you can take out as ordinary income, taxable income. And so I knew that we could save him like literally thousands of dollars, which we do every year. So
what year was that?
That was back in 2007. Okay, hold it. 2008-ish. 2008, 2009-ish, yeah. So then, now it's just exploded. We go around the country, basically, and put on these tax seminars for all kinds of industries. doTERRA, Young Living, Mary Kay, Clear Satellite, Dish, Direct, everything, Vivint, whatever. And we have literally been the educators. And the thing is that when I talk, people seriously get so excited. I took my brother to one, there was 81 guys in Vegas. And my brother's a CPA. And I said, Brad, why don't you just come and listen to me? Because I don't really know how another CPA views me. So he goes, absolutely. So he comes, there's 81 guys. He said not one of those guys moved. Their eyes were this big. And he says, Barb, you were a rock star. Well, I'm not a rock star. I just get people excited about learning about tax so they can literally...
Which is a hard thing to do sometimes, where most CPAs are going to be like, okay, so we're going to take the 7 and roll the 4 and the section 7 sue 7 4.
Yeah.
And you're just like...
Well, and actually a lot of tax attorneys just call us data input operators, which, you know what, I don't really know. I don't hire people like that. I hire people who strategize with my clients who are hands-on. But yeah, so we get them excited. We have this
so you
awesome
put fun
tool.
into accounting.
Yeah, we teach them to, 1, live a tax-deductible life, and 2, they can become their best accountant. I'm not saying you have to know tax reform. I'm saying that they, before they do one thing, in their mind say, how can I make this a tax deduction? So it starts like, oh my gosh, I got to know more, and it's just a fabulous thing to know. It's totally empowering. It starts making you aware of why you don't want to pay the IRS when you're eating, sleeping, drinking your business, because isn't that what we do?
100%.
100%. So you should use that as your leverage and make your world revolve around a tax-deductible life.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So one thing that's really unique for those that are listening is since 2007, you've worked with hundreds of door-to-door professionals.
Yes.
And, it's funny, I'm sitting there putting this Facebook thing together, and she's like, oh, Jeremy Davis, I know him, and this guy, and I know him. And I'm there's a difference between, explain the difference between somebody that understands door-to-door and just a normal accountant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a difference between the two.
Well, for one, you know what? Some firms will turn you away because they are afraid of the audits, okay? And I know one CPA down in Provo who was with a big firm that took care of a lot of door-to-door guys. He got so frustrated with the door-to-door sales guys, he only takes 5 a year now. He went into a totally different place because, one, they sit and talk amongst themselves and say, oh, well, I only had to pay $5,000. And the other guy's like, what? I had to pay $12,000. And so then you got the little, oh, my accountant must not be doing it right,
Yeah.
And then you've got, the state things and just dealing with all the personalities. So he said, I'm not dealing with this anymore. So he only picks 5, and they have to never speak to their buddies about their tax. They have to use QuickBooks, payroll, the other things. That tells you the extreme
it's a complicated, it's not just a TurboTax, let's plug it in and call it good, where a lot of the sales reps make that mistake. They're like, oh, well, it's just like how my other job was, and I just file at the end and we're good.
Yeah, tax, okay, and also the other question that I get a lot is, why should I keep track of my income and expenses? I'm going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. So what they don't even understand is that they can take expenses. Like this money, the minute they sign their W-9 you became a company. I mean, you designated yourself. You might not be an S corporation or an LLC, but just signing that W-9, boom, you're a CEO. And they weren't taught that. They just go up there and they sign their names to these W-9s and they say, okay, we're going to go make 100,000 and bye-bye and see you later, whatever. And they don't know about all these fabulous deductions.
Well, the problem is just, I'm going to tell you my story. Here's my problem. So I graduate high school, and the day after I graduate, I fly out to Dallas and did summer sales. And I made 24 grand that year. I was only out there for a half a summer, on top of the world as an 18-year-old kid, and going on a mission.
Yeah.
And about halfway through my mission, my dad's sending me these letters. He's like, the IRS is after you. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what's the IRS?
What's the IRS?
I was like, what is that?
Yeah, that's
He's like, it's called the government. You haven't paid your taxes. And I was like, how do I do that? He's like, what do you mean? You were supposed to pay your taxes. And I was like, so I'm in Argentina, translating through mail, email. And I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. So I had to pay fees and penalties and all this stuff because, nobody ever told me it's cool. I just got paid and took the money and spent it. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
well,
crazy.
And the other thing is the IRS, if you don't send in a tax return by X amount of time, they prepare it for you. And guess what? If they got a 1099, you're right. They would not give you one tax deduction.
Oh, one. You would pay full.
Yeah, you would
everything.
pay full blown for self-employment tax, which is 15.3% plus your ordinary tax.
Oh, I'm sure.
So yeah, I'm sure that you paid out. But you know, a lot of people get afraid. You know, like if you heard
it's
that,
a lot of numbers and lines and stuff.
You were probably like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I was also this kid I was telling you about where he got a 1099. I did him a favor and I kind of walked him through this free tax software and told him how much he could deduct in the whole thing. And then I left because he wasn't going to pay me, so why keep doing this, you know, and having this conversation. So 2 years later, he gets a notice too about something. And I went back to him and I said, well, how come you had to owe $14,000? And he said, well, Barb, I just got so nervous about those write-offs, I just took them all out. So he didn't even take a deduction because he was so afraid. And I mean, you gotta realize that's how come I was teaching accounting. Now, do I think that it should be mandatory tax in high school? Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
You know, even if you just learn about a W-2 and a 1099, you know, so, but they don't even, and then it's only an elective in high school for accounting, and we maybe spend 2 hours on tax.
So I think, you know, it's funny, I ask a lot of entrepreneurs and mentors of mine, and, you know, as I was going through school, I always was like, so what should I graduate in? Like, if you could pick one thing, go back in time and say, hey, let's study X, Y, Z, they would have most of them say accounting. Most of them say, if you're going into business, don't go to business general, like go into accounting so that you have an actual, like, you understand all the books and the receivables and the payable, you know what I mean, the tax laws and all this stuff. And because I feel like, you know, it's one thing to go work hard, but it's another thing to actually like manage your money and let it grow and all the.
And the cool thing about my team and me is that you might be thinking that you're telling me a situation when you give me a number. In my mind, I'm creating a tax return. I've already got ideas about how to maybe put it away, where we want to put it away. So people sometimes think I have this glaze over my eyes, but it's because I seriously sit and I say, okay, this is where you are. This is what we can do. This would be reasonable compensation. This is what you need to pay for estimated tax. So that's the gift that my team and I bring to you is we are so experienced and so understanding of this industry and their managers that when you ask a question, some accountants might just say, yes, that's true. We say, how much time do you have? Because we can put you in so many different scenarios.
So many different little buckets.
And say, you know, do you want to bring in your kids? Do you want to bring in a spouse? How about an in-home office? Do you want to buy a building? Do you want to buy real estate? So we start making you think more than just, oh, I'm bringing you my income and expenses. It's like, that's not what that means to us.
No.
What it means to us is, how can we teach you?
Which is huge.
It's huge.
And some people, here's the other fear that everybody has. Well, it's cheaper to go with the TurboTax. I don't want to spend a couple $100. I'm talking a couple $100 to save. I mean, you've probably seen double-digit, triple-digit numbers in taxes. Like, and you know, you're like, okay, it's like The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yes.
It's for anybody that's read that book, great book on finance, and he's just like, I don't pay the brickmaker to manage my money.
Exactly.
I pay the person that's the best at what they do to manage my money.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool. So those that are listening or watching this, Barb has become an expert in what we do so that she can then give the best service to her clients as door-to-door managers, owners, reps, things like that.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, somebody was like, hey, I want to call you or go to you. One, how do they find you? And then kind of price range so that people aren't like, man, is that thousands of dollars a year? Or how's that work? Like,
yes. Okay, so the best way to get a hold of us right now is to go to info@robinsonburnett.com. Okay. But my current clients, they text.
Okay.
Because my emails can get buried. And we have one of our accountants that does go look into our info, and she knows where to delegate the information to and who wants to take this client. But my clients have automatic access. I know when you guys sleep, and I know when you guys wake up.
Keep going.
Because like Jonah, for example, can text me at 11, and he knows he's going to hear from me, and it'll be like, Barb, remember that night we were talking, Jonah? And he kept saying, why are you awake? And I said, because I know this is when you guys are awake. But if I try and get a hold of you guys at 8 a.m., I don't get any response. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're awake, you know?
That's funny.
But so I'm super hands-on, and I like my clients to be rich, and I like them to be paying as little taxes as possible and also using our guidance. So it's just, I think people call me and my staff anomalies because you say you're typical accountants. You know, we aren't. We engage, and I don't know what it is, why we have that gift, but we do. And so when someone says, like a tax attorney actually said this to me, oh, you're a data input, whatever. I thought, brother, don't call me again. You know, I'm just like, you don't know me. You don't know what we're about. Yeah. But it's cool because for some reason, our nurturing side of us comes in with this industry, and we really become part of your family. Yeah. Like I know, you know, a lot of things about so many different door-to-door sales guys because I've been with them since before they were married, before they had kids, before they had a house, so we grow up together. I have clients now that I've known for 25 years. Some of them I forced to get married because it was in their benefit. Like they're inviting me to their wedding. I'm like, I'm the one that put this together. It was hilarious. But if you're just going to go out and buy TurboTax, I have some ugly stories about that. When I had to go review one of my client's employees' tax returns. He asked me as a favor, and I'm happy to do that. So I go down there and I've never really worked with TurboTax, even though it's also part of it's under the umbrella of our Pro Series Lacert tax software, okay? Mm-hmm. So I go in there and I start realizing I don't understand the program. So, like I do with you, I see his tax return and what his question is, and I already know the answer. Then I start going through the software. If you don't have that information, you can pick up things twice. I had one client that started out with TurboTax. She owned real estate. So she answered the question about her real estate mortgage interest in two places. Okay, real estate mortgage interest on a commercial building versus your residential. Huge difference. Well, of course, she gets an audit, ends up paying literally thousands of dollars. That's just one thing and now I understand, now that I've been into TurboTax, I can see where people get confused because, you know, it does take you from one place and some of the questions aren't very clear. So I understood, you know, why he did it, why he bought it because of the price. But when we can come in there and do a Schedule C and another tax return, you know, other forms for like $295 plus $45 per state, it's like that is unbelievably good, a good price break if you're already paying $90 for TurboTax because we have the experience behind us. And so I can't even imagine someone in your industry and in management industry going and doing their own. Now, can they organize it? Absolutely. I mean, some of my clients are crazy good with spreadsheets, and so
on a silver platter.
But we always meet with them too because you might give me your records. But you know what? When I roll up my sleeves and I get that,
you're gonna find more. You're gonna say, "What about this? And what about this?"
And they're like, "Oh, I didn't know." You know,
no, it's crazy. Like having an accountant that does that, and you know, I think it was 2014. My accountant, similar thing, and he goes in and he's like, "Wait, let's do this, move this, do this," and he's like, "Oh, did you do this?" And I'm like, "Yes," and he's like, "Okay, good. I just saved another $12,000 on your taxes." And I was like, "Oh, I see where you're going with this. I'll just keep listening." And so, you know, it was wild. So what I want to do, this is interesting. Okay. So I want to be the rep. Okay. I'm some rep, brand new. Okay. Oh my gosh, tell me about taxes. I just made $100,000. Okay. So it's just easy math.
Yep.
If I don't do anything, I show up in April. I get this. I need to pay my taxes.
Oh, hold it. You're showing up in April.
Yeah, like all this. I didn't do anything throughout the year. I'm a rep. I made $100,000. I got my back end. I'm like balling out. 2017 was a killer year, and now it's tax season. I get this thing, and it's like, oh, you got to pay your taxes. If I don't do a thing, what would I probably pay in taxes?
Okay, so luckily we just have this new great tax reform. So best news for all of us.
Okay, listen up, because I found this out today. Merry Christmas.
It is Merry Christmas.
Why do you keep stopping and stopping me? Oh, it's not working?
What?
Oh. That one is. Okay, good. That's fine. So basically, you know, tax reform. Tell us about that, because I just found this out today. I'm like, happy birthday! It's my birthday today, and I was like, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what happened is there's good and bad, of course, to everything. But the good thing for us that I was telling Sam is I have been waiting my whole career for someone in Congress to do something nice for me as a business person. And this year they finally did it. We get a 20% deduction, basically, of our net income. So if this person made $100,000, for one thing, automatically he gets to write off how much? $20,000.
Does he have to do anything to actually get that?
No,
it's just automatic.
It's a pass-through. So
Okay.
S corps, LLCs, even Schedule C individuals.
Okay. So
sole
because he signed
proprietors.
up the W-9, he's now a Schedule C.
He's now a Schedule
Okay,
C. Any
cool.
kind of pass-through, and a pass-through tax return, by the way, means it's strictly informational. So it doesn't pay its own tax. That's why it's passed through to end up on your individual tax
cool.
return. Okay, 20% right off the bat. Okay, I'm
Thank
so
you, Trump.
excited.
Yes.
I know. I'm just super excited. Okay, the other thing that happened is the tax rates got expanded. So it used to be that $100,000 they were paying like 25% tax on like $100,000, let's just say. Now it's only 22%. Okay. The other thing is if you're talking about a single direct sales guy, they came in $100,000. They get to deduct $12,000 just for living and breathing and being a taxpayer. Okay. So that automatically drops him down to $88,000.
Does he have to do anything to get that?
No.
Okay.
He just has to live.
He just lived. No, but let's hypothetically just say he didn't know what he was doing. He just somehow filed.
No, that is that's a default.
A default setting.
That's
cool.
a default. He puts in his $100,000. He
so
gets
cool.
$12,000. He gets the 20% off, and then he owes,
78.
So he owes on $78,000, whatever that net is.
68.
Okay, so 60. So the thing is that the tax structure works in tiers.
Cool.
So if he's single, $0 to $9,200 is in the 10% bracket. $9,300 up to like $38,000 is in the 12% tax bracket. So once he reaches up to like the $68,000, he's in the 22% tax bracket, where he used to be in the 25% tax bracket. It saved him 3% of 68. What is that? 3% of is 68.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm gonna grab
34. It's like saves him $1,500.
Yeah, I mean just boom.
Boom.
The tax bracket.
And that's if he makes $100,000 and doesn't come see us.
He doesn't do anything. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So now he would pay 22% on that, right?
Yep, 22%. Well, no, it's all in tiers. Remember, so the first
So 68,000.
So the first
okay.
first 10,000, let's say, is 10%.
10%.
Then, so that's 1,000.
Okay.
So the next 10,000 to 38,000. So that's the next like 30,000 is at the 12%.
So 12%
So that's up to
of
4,000 ish.
Okay, we'll go roughly.
And then whatever, and he stays in the 22% bracket. So then the next 38,000 is in the 22% tax bracket.
So 38,000 times 0.22. Oh, whoops.
So it's only 30,000. So it comes in
30,000.
increments. Yeah.
So 30,000 at 22% is 66.
$6,600.
So we're at 5. You're at.
So he's at like $12,000,
$12,000.
and that doesn't include the states.
Okay.
Where if he came to us and we put him into an S corporation immediately, we save him literally. I'm going to say we save him right automatically $6,600 because I know what we can do.
So you just literally cut his tax bill in half simply by setting up an S corp.
And simply by setting up an S corp, and then we understand all the credits that he like. There's so many cool things that the feds offer. Now, yes, some of them are going away. Yeah, it's true, but he's getting a higher tax deduction. That $12,000 doubled from $6,000 last year. For you, it doubled from $12,000 to $24,000.
Wow.
So people that maybe don't have a home or don't have itemized deductions, they automatically get $24,000 boom. Yeah. So there is some magic in this, but there's also some disadvantages. There are things that have been taken away.
What are some of the things that got taken away?
Well, for example, some of the like a teacher credit has gotten taken away. Some things that really don't pertain to
what
the
affects
industry.
us? Yeah.
So the things that there's really nothing that affects you per se.
Just wins.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
because you're in business. I'm our deductions are what we spend our money on, and that's the other thing I want to remind you is we teach you before you make a decision. Remember, how can I make this a tax deduction? So if you're going to your sister's wedding, we no longer say you're going to your sister's wedding. You're going to recruit. You're going to your sister's wedding, but you're actually going to recruit while you're out there. Network You're going for 5 days.
Yep.
You're going to spend 2 or 3 days recruiting. You're going to go to other offices. You're going to learn marketing strategies. You're going to look at the paper. You're going to meet with guys so that 3/5 of all your costs are deductible.
Yeah.
And if you have a bona fide part of your person in your business, meaning someone that actually schedules for you, helps you with your tax return, does the financing, whatever, and that becomes a bona fide part of your business, in other words, a spouse, significant other, you can take them traveling and you can write off their deductions.
That's awesome.
And
a
so
lot of
many
people don't know that.
They don't even know that. And the other thing I really do is when our door-to-door sales guys go out, I require that their spouse become heavily involved. We pay her a salary or him, and because we want to write off their per diem. We want to write off their miles. We want to, their computer. Then they come back and they work with me or work with one of my team, and they are literally part of the business. That way also, if something happens to you or something gets lost, you have a person to go to that understand what's been going on.
Yep.
And S corporations get an annual trip a year. You want to take Katie to the Bahamas? You should, because every S corporation gets an annual trip a year deduction where you go and you do tax strategy, you do your minutes, and you can write off the whole trip. So
the annual trip, it's like, let's go to Europe, honey. And
yeah.
It's like counted as a tax deduction.
Yeah, you're going to actually be working on some things. But if you went for 10 days and 7 of them were strategic planning and saying where you want to go and working on it, 7/10 of your is deductible. So this is kind of stuff that regular accountants don't tell you.
Yeah.
Because their whole thing is volume. Of course, ours is volume, but ours is quality time.
Yeah.
Ours is teach and then talk. Ours is listen and then ask. If your accountant is not asking you more questions than you are, you need to find another one.
Yeah.
Because what is the whole thing that John Maxwell says? Leaders ask more questions.
Yep.
So if you're with a leader who wants you to be successful, wants to do their job, then they should be asking you more questions.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So let's just run through the same scenario.
Okay.
I am this rep.
Yes.
I made $100,000.
Yes.
I just did the strategy with, some of the, my in-home rents. I did my deductions. I set up an S corp.
Yes.
I mean, technically, you could probably get me down to nothing, really, right?
In some cases, if they have a certain credits, we can seriously wipe away. Like solar credit can help.
Yeah.
Like 30% of your solar bill. Remember, if you do the panels, 30% is a credit.
Yeah.
Okay, and so there's a bunch of credits. There's child credit. The new tax reform gives every parent a $2,000 credit for each child. And so what this credit does is like the $2,000 times 2 children equal $4,000. So let's say your tax bill was $5,000.
Yeah, because you got me down to $6,600.
Yeah. So let's say I get you down with the credits to $1,000. So if you have any kind of other credits, that can be wiped out, totally wiped out clean. Let's say that you are getting a refund back, okay? The IRS now is going to allow you, if you don't use that whole $2,000 credit per child, they're going to give you $1,400 of it back in your pocket. As a refundable.
Wow.
So that was like huge, because usually the credits are just to pay your taxes.
Just goes to zero.
Just to go, yeah.
So now it goes above and beyond. So you could technically make money every year if you did it right.
You really could.
I have 5 kids. I'm making $1,400 a kid.
You
Literally,
could. I mean,
I've written everything off. I
Yeah.
strategized. And I mean, at the end of the day, the first scenario, he spent $12,000 in taxes.
Yeah.
And what happens a lot of times, I had a rep. I won't say his name. If you're watching this, so I get a call and he's like, "Hey, can I borrow $11,000?" I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
And this is like April. I'm like, "Let me guess. You didn't put aside that for your taxes?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, that's the biggest issue. So many people, it's like we spend what we make, right? It's
so
like
sad.
we're this commission based. It's like, oh, I live paycheck to pay, whatever, and you don't realize that you just went a whole year, made great money, you spent it all, and now you got hit with $11,000 tax.
Okay, and you know what the IRS has the power to do?
One of my reps, homes and stuff.
Well, no, one of my reps got his back end, and the next day it was gone.
Oh, they literally can.
They can go in and seize your assets if you have not filed your taxes and have not paid anything. They can keep sending you notices. Like, what if your dad, how many, I don't know how many years, we went a couple, and I didn't know this kid first. But they can literally, once
They
your
took
bank
your- they
account,
seized
they
your-
will seize, they seized his entire, everything out of his bank.
Wow.
Now, then he found us, and I went back and helped him for those prior years, and we got him on an installment agreement and wiped out, literally 2/3 of it. But what a hassle.
I know.
And how scary. And then he had to work with an IRS agent, was seriously the grumpiest person I've ever met.
And every time you call the IRS, it's like 70 minutes.
And it's, yeah,
your
you have
wait
to
time
wait.
is 2 days. 2 days? My battery only lasts like 12 hours.
Actually, though, we have a hotline.
Oh, really?
So I can get in like within 2 minutes.
Oh,
but
I
we
hate
have,
you.
yeah, we have a
I will-
special number. So
Terrible.
I was able to get that process a little faster. But the person, you have to stay with the same person typically in
Oh.
something like this. But she
nasty.
was not happy, and she would not give my dear friend's son a break. But anyway, we finally got through it. But let me tell you, the other thing is the IRS is forgiving on some things. Like if you even communicate with them, if you do anything to show that you are interested
That
in
you're
your
actually listening
Yeah.
to the letters they
they
send you.
will give you, a benefit of the doubt. So when we go to prepare your taxes, they're already expecting them. Sometimes we can fax them in to get faster. We can develop a relationship with these people,
Cool.
which is the most important thing. So
Well, because there's probably people listening to this. If you're listening to this and you're like, dang it, I already messed up on my last year and the year before. Like, it's like, there's ways to kind of go backwards too.
yeah.
So we can amend. And that's something good to know. It's not like
Yeah,
you're
it
the
is.
end of the world. It's like,
true.
what's crazy is they could go back and find an extra $10,000
easily.
sitting there.
Oh,
And it's
easily.
like, how nice would that be? You show
Yeah.
up tomorrow and you're like, wow, we just made you $10,000. If you would have made that call and called like an
Yeah.
accountant like Barb, you would have never seen that
No,
$10,000.
I know. And
Like
they
that,
and they
like it's
really don't
crazy.
know.
They don't
They
know.
really-
So
they
if you're
don't know.
listening to this, make the call. Like go to freaking Barb and be like, Barb, maybe you can save me some money. Here's a
Yeah.
couple $100. Do your
Yeah.
thing. Like,
But you know what else we found? It's
It's
really
crazy.
interesting. Like there'll be some guys that haven't ever filed or didn't file for
It's
like
just-
5 years. And you know
crazy.
what? So we jump on board. We're all excited to teach them. They will not carry through. They almost like give up. It's almost like I'm checking out.
I'm just out.
I can't
hope I don't go
handle
to jail
this.
one day.
And they can go to jail.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, or they can have all their money seized
It's
for the
so
rest of their
true.
lives. But I'm saying that some people, and I don't know, I kind of blame it on the parents. If the parents haven't taught them anything about money or, why it's okay to pay taxes.
Well, we think it's like, oh, if I just sweep it all under the rug and
Yeah.
let these IRS notices just stack up
Yeah.
in the corner, that it'll just kind of go away.
But if they haven't had any exposure and they don't listen to someone that's passionate, they will check out.
It's
and
daunting
it's
though.
awful.
I'm the worst. I get these things in the mail. I don't like to
Freaked
read,
out.
and I'm like, shoot, you lost me in the first sentence, IRS.
Yeah,
Like this
it's
just
true.
looks too confusing.
Yeah,
and it's like, we need you to send this back in, and I'm like,
it was probably for health insurance. You had to send them 1095A and 8829. We got a 10.
all these big
nuts.
nuts. Okay, you just lost me with the whole 10. I'm just like, dude, you lost me. Dude. How am I supposed to remember what these numbers
Yeah.
are? And that's the thing is, it's
Yeah.
like
You
having
can't- you
somebody
can't
you
know.
can take a picture of it and be like, what do I do?
Yeah, that's
Like,
so true.
it's so important.
It's so important.
So important.
The other thing is because we know what the red flags are for an audit, even though
Oh,
S
this
corporations,
is big. Listen to this. This is big.
even though S corporations are only like typically audited about 2% of all S corps are, there are still major red flags for S corporations, LLCs,
And they've automated the red flags now.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like
we learn about these.
this number offset. Oh, this,
Yeah,
and then it's
yeah.
like boom, red flag.
They have you in a scientific calculation at all times, and they're monitoring you. And so that's why I always ask for 2 prior year tax returns. I want to see what the IRS has on their radar for you. I want to know about, the big thing for the past 3 years is like compensation that is reasonable, because you'll see some guys come in with an S corp and they'll pay themselves like $10,000.
Mine was $12,000 my first year.
Yeah, well, but if your
It's
distributions
terrible.
or your net income is like 200,000.
It doesn't make any sense.
They're going to be like, okay, you're trying to get out of payroll taxes. That's what they're trying to do with reasonable compensation.
Yeah.
They have
Red
to
flag.
have a bank for your Social Security.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that you're covered because they base all their statistics on when you retire.
Yeah.
So we keep you out of that. Mileage, number 1 red flag with a regular LLC. LLCs and just your typical Schedule C, typical just person that just signs the W-9. Boom. You are so in the zone for an audit, especially if you're mileage. So we always have the guys say, do you have written documentation to back these 55,000 miles?
Because we're going out driving. I got a beater car specifically because I put so many dang miles on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so we question. We question a lot of things.
Okay.
And if you're telling us something and it doesn't sound right, I actually turned one client down.
wow.
He sent all his stuff in, and yes, it was 2 days before tax season, but the information he gave us, and it wasn't me, I gave it to one of my staff, it was so out of line. I'm not doing it.
You're
not.
just like, it's too much of a liability on you.
Yeah, and I know it's not true.
Yeah.
You know what? If you want someone that is that hungry for deductions and can find someone to prepare a tax return, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to give up my career and my credibility to believe something so that you don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people that do try to push that line.
Oh.
It's like, well, technically, I mean, in my mind, maybe ran. You know what I mean? And you probably get a lot of that.
Yeah,
right?
and so I fire at least 2 to 3 guys a year.
Wow.
Because it's just not worth it. And they keep telling me what to do, and it's like, you know what?
I'm
I
the
can't.
professional.
Yeah, and I can't. I'm not going to give up my license for this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's talk audit. So my
Okay.
dad got audited.
Okay.
And he ran a big company, and I think it cost him like $400,000 just in audit fees.
Oh,
like,
that's big then. That would have been my brother Brad that
like
he would have fired.
They went back 7 years or something.
Wow.
And it was like, he literally was like, they will pull over every receipt.
Yeah.
They will like uncover every little rock.
Yeah.
And he is like, it is the biggest nightmare in the world.
It is.
And, you know, I guess my question is like, let's hypothetically say somebody does get audited in door to door. Like, how often have you ever seen that?
Well, the only ones that are getting audited now, we have not had any of our S corporations ever audited. Because why?
Because 2%.
No, because I monitor.
Oh yeah, because
I
you don't
watch.
put the red flag.
I don't put the red flag up.
Yeah.
But we had 2 door-to-door techs get audited.
Oh wow.
And because when you're an employee and you're a W-2, typically there's a reimbursement policy.
Oh.
Okay, in this particular company, they're not making aware this reimbursement policy. Well, if there's any reimbursement policy, you don't get to write anything off.
Wow.
So they got audited because of their high mileage, because they had per diem. I mean, they were in 9 states.
Oh yeah, when you're teching or even selling, you could be in.
So they got audited, and one of the guys is so organized. When he was audited and they continued to disallow, I was just like, what is it that you want? And they started saying, we don't know anything about Venmo. Why aren't you giving 1090? All this stuff on stuff that we understand.
Wow.
And they started saying, he has a reimbursement policy that you sent us. I don't care if they're not made aware of it. This is the IRS code. So we have beat with this IRS agent, and he originally owed $22,000. We now have it down to $2,200. But we are taking it all the way to the U.S. tax court.
Wow.
Because these guys are not being made aware of the reimbursement policy. Now,
it's not fair to them. It's not fair to them as an employee.
They should be
company,
getting reimbursed for their $40,000 of expenses on a $150,000 W-2.
Yeah, that's
insane.
Insane.
Why would anyone not turn in receipts if they knew about it when they could get like some kind? Yeah, so it doesn't make any sense. So that's how we're fighting this.
So $2,200 now versus $22,000. Like, I'm talking. That's a tenth. Like, if I could go get 10 times my money in an investment, would I do it?
Yeah.
And we can go backwards too. If I can save a tenth of what I'm about to spend in taxes, would I do it? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen it over and over and over again. Reps just being ignorant because it's scary.
They don't know,
and it's
overwhelming.
We don't understand the numbers.
Yeah, you know what? There's this cool app called TaxBot, TaxBot, that you can take a picture of your receipt, categorize it into like travel, meals, team building, and take the picture, and it calculates it, and then at the end of the year you send me a report. And
so
same thing for mileage.
You don't even have to put the amount in it.
Right. It just takes the picture, it calculates, and so then I get a report. Now, we are now really requiring our guys to pay $10 a month to do QuickBooks. You can do the same thing. You can take a picture and download into QuickBooks, or we just, track your bank and all your transactions. But if worst case scenario, TaxBot works okay too. It just doesn't give you a balance sheet, and it's not able to give you all the information that we are. because remember, I've created this tool now for our guys that gives categories for every single thing they could possibly write off. Uniforms, activation fees. I mean, per diems for your bona fide, person. Meals that you guys, like a lot of times, you will put on like a big party and you'll have all these receipts and, you'll say, oh, I don't remember what these are for, so poof, throw them out or whatever. But we actually have this great tool, this spreadsheet that gives you outlines of every single thing.
So it tells you which categories, where
all
they
the categories,
fall. That's cool.
And then it has a drop-down box as to what cities and states you're in, and gives you the automatic write-off for your per diem, so you don't have to keep your meal receipts.
That's cool.
It's automatic, and then it has information for travel, for baggage, for rental cars. A lot of times you guys split rental car fees or shared fuel. A lot of times the guys will get in the car and give the driver $10.
Yep, all the time.
You guys don't think about that.
Yep.
Because it's cash.
Yep.
We know about it. And so we ask. And you want some are like $500, $600 because they don't have their cars.
It adds up.
Or sometimes you guys are buying cars together. Like you'll buy a beater car, you'll go out there, buy a beater car, and then you'll split it, and then you'll sell it, or someone will take it. So we know how to do all that.
That's cool.
We know if you are making a lot of money and you're talking even briefly about, hey, I want to buy a truck, we know to tell you, if you buy that truck, call me before you want to trade it in. Because a lot of times the guys will say, oh yeah, I sold that truck last year, Barb. And I'll be like, oh, no. That was a cardinal rule. Well, what happens is if they made any money on that truck, they have to pick it up as income. And if we depreciated it, because it was over 6,000 pounds, we can write it off as vehicle in some cases, and we wrote off this huge amount, they have to recapture that. They have to pay taxes. So it's a cardinal rule. So we teach them, you don't do anything without texting us.
Yeah,
or
that's
emailing
huge.
us. Yeah.
So to kind of wrap this up, what are some great maybe podcasts, books, websites that people could go, self-teach themselves a little bit if they're interested in like, shoot, where do I start? Like, I know you've got a YouTube channel.
I mean, it's not that great. I've only done.
But it'd be great. Follow her. How do they find that?
And I have so much content, you guys. Oh my gosh. So I just have to find time. But eventually I'll probably have to have someone else do it. But yeah, it's Robinson Burnett Tax Consultants Inc. Sorry it's so long, and you're gonna see my face. And sometimes I'm in my suit, and sometimes I'm not. The other night I was just like, they just have to know about estimated tax payments.
It's important.
And so I just put my hair up and I just taught them, and I actually have the forms. Now, yes, I could get on a PowerPoint, but I actually get in your face and I take you down through the list and I show you the forms and I say, if your accountant isn't telling you this, you need to ask them for it.
Cool.
But yes, that's where the YouTube is. We do seminars all the time, so some of them are on the YouTube. But of course, things change all the time. So, but at least they can get familiar about going there, and so subscribe, so it'll like say, okay, Barb, come out and give us some more. But there is so much good stuff, and although parents typically teach that the IRS is a bad thing, I was raised to not feel that way. I was raised to that's who's taking care of gathering the money to pay for the infrastructure of the United States. Yep. So I have other problems with guys who like come in and say, I'm not paying a dime. And that I'm usually like, then I really can't help you.
It's so funny. I had a conversation with my uncle the other day, and he's like all about paying taxes. Okay. Like it was weird. He makes millions of dollars.
Yeah, good for him.
And he's just like, why are we trying to nickel and dime our government that keeps us together? And he kind of changed my paradigm a little bit in that regard. It's like, it's not a bad person. Yeah. It's like if we didn't have the IRS, we'd all be screwed.
And I mean, their personalities aren't always happy, but we know how to talk to them and we know how to work with them. And a lot of times you can change their perspective. Yeah. If you have, I had one guy, actually it was the guy that was getting audited. So this woman is from back east, so she has a different, style. Okay. Than we Westerners. And so I was very formal with her. And then I finally got the client on. And he's like you. Super awesome. Personable.
Oh, thank you. It's just because my birthday you're saying that.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, that is right. But he got on there. He changed her like that.
That's so cool.
She's all of a sudden saying, okay, well, if you'll give me this, then I will consider. Okay, and I will make you a deal on that. And I'm just like, wait, what? But it's because they are human.
Yeah.
And so you can get a really grumpy one. The nice thing is if you get a grumpy one when you call, you can say, oh, hey, gotta go. And you can call back and 5 minutes later, you get someone that's super nice.
We know that trick in alarms. It's like, or, you know, you call up the competitor's company and you're like trying to cancel their account. You're like, sorry. And you try to get another one that's like more nice.
Yeah.
Like we do that all the time. That's
yeah,
funny that you do the same with the
And
IRS.
some are so nice.
That's
and
so
like
cool.
they apologize for the grumps. You know,
awesome.
I'll say like, you know what, I've had a really hard time trying to explain this, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And they will, because they're people, and they have kids, and they have
so
families,
cool.
and you know, so, but I'm just saying whatever the situation, payroll, bookkeeping is so necessary. S corporations, when you're making above 50, 60,000, LLCs, no matter what. The reason I really push LLCs the minute you write your name on that W-9 is if you go into someone's house and something happens from any kind of weird situation.
Oh, we've heard weird.
And you get sued.
Yep.
You don't have any kind of protection.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, they could put you
They
out.
they could put you out. Where if you're, that's why I say, I don't think anyone that we have, the very first year we have people that are basically, you know, just sole proprietor Schedule C. But we really say, you know what, get used to taking care of you, because and that's the other thing about empowering yourself with tax reform and tax knowledge is you protect yourself. You guys, so many times all of us are out to help our customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so many times we forget that we have to help ourselves because nobody else really is going to. And so you have to be aware, or you're going to be like that client who just said, I was freaked out, I didn't write off one deduction, I just gave the IRS 15 grand. And so if you really start taking care of yourself and paying attention to all these things, it's not going to be scary. I have one of my doTERRA clients who, by the way, by age 5, you have already developed your perspective on money. Okay?
That's interesting.
So she's like 30.
Katie, write that down.
So she's like 30, and she actually is the one that put on our huge doTERRA tax seminar. It went out to like 6,000 people. So I went and met with her, and she just was like in a frozen state. And she's making like a bunch of money. And she says, I am so afraid to even think about my taxes because my dad was a business owner, and I'll never forget every year him sitting down and just saying, oh, this is just so hard. And I just can't understand why I have to do this. And she said, I grew up thinking this is bad.
Almost like tax trauma. Like just
tax
from
trauma.
I mean, that's crazy.
I said, you know what? We're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to do this together.
That's so cool.
And you know what? 3 years later, she just wrote a book. She's killing it with her downline. And she is in an S corporation. We're paying her payroll. She even does her own payroll.
Wow.
She's so comfortable that she's like, she loves it. She loves getting into it. She knows where her QuickBooks is. She looks at her profit loss. I mean, we have these kind of conversations. So, but why? Only because why? Because education is powerful.
Powerful. And it's just be a sponge. Like if you could take one thing from this podcast, it's like educate yourself on this, because if you're not investing in yourself, on learning, and that's like one of the reasons I was like, we have to have a tax person at DDDCon. Like we have to, because so many people, they just don't take the time to learn it, and it's something that they're going to deal with the rest of their lives. I don't care who you are.
That's why I think it should be taught in high school.
Exactly. It's something that we deal with every year. Yeah. It's going to happen, whether you're W-2, 1099, or whatever.
So true.
And just fully understanding it, and like the new reforms, just being up to date, and things like that, it saves you money. It just helps. It helps
even if you can go into your tax professional and say, hey, how can the tax reform help me?
Yep.
Automatically, that is going to perk your accountant's ears up and say, oh my gosh, I better like spend more time with him than I did last year, because
100%.
Obviously he's learned something. Because just like we've had an experience today with your information, people will take advantage of you.
Oh, 100%. They're just like, oh, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah, just take advantage of him. And we don't. Well, for one thing, because I don't want to get in trouble. I mean, we have to have documentation. We have to know where things are coming from. But mostly because we seriously care about you. I'm not kidding. Like, I was talking to a brand new client in Florida this morning. Cute, they're your age, just absolutely awesome. And she's like, this is what I want. I want someone that can talk to me about me and not just say, where's your forms?
Yep.
Talk to me about me. Talk to me about my kids. Talk to me about my husband and my retirement plan. Yes, we're making a ton, but you know what? The company could go away next week.
100%.
You know, so we talk to you about not just today. We talk to you about in the future.
Yep.
We tell you what's available now, what's available for you then. We talk because it's life and it's important. And you know what? When we're self-employed, we eat, drink, and sleep like we talked. If you're just ready to go out and hand off all that money to the IRS, don't. Go get a W-2 job.
Yep.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth grinding what we do.
No, it's not.
To do that.
Right.
So I honestly, we've appreciated your time. Like I hope everybody in this live or listening has been able to take some key nuggets out of it. And this is just an overview of what you're about to dive into at DDDCon. So we're excited. We're excited to have you there and like host you there. So if you want to get to know her, Robinson Burnett. Look up their tax accounting firm. They are taking clients. I think they will get booked up faster at DDDCon, so I would hit her up before then so that you can.
Yeah, well, we have beefed up because every year we add so many. And remember, that's only one of our niches. Door to door is only one of our niches. Like we have Ace Hardwares and dentists and other. But we have a niche of direct salespeople. So we have beefed up. I beefed up my staff before this.
Yeah, no, and it's because there is a massive difference simply between normal accountant and accountant that gets it. Like they get what we need. Yeah. So honestly, we appreciated this. And
thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk. I have
so
much to tell you.
Yeah, and it's a fun accountant. Like I've actually you didn't bore anybody. Like anybody sleeping on here? Okay, good. No, but it's a funny joke, but it's so true. Like you make just learning about finance more educational and fun and energetic, and we appreciate that.
And you know what? I will always say anybody can learn anything. And you seriously can learn to be your own best accountant. You just have to know what to put in your mind and the people around you and teach them. So that's our goal.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to talk to you.